Now here's Tim Burton's latest effort, Miss Peregrines, a book adaptation that tells the story of a home for peculiar children, that is, children with superpowers. Now, this movie resonated with me quite a bit because growing up my dad used to call me peculiar. Wait, was it peculiar? Oh, no, that's right, it was mistake. Yeah, he used to say I was a mistake. But that's kinda like calling me peculiar, because isn't it peculiar for a father not to love his own son? Where were you when I had to learn how to ride a bike, Dad? Eh? Where were you? Oh, that went places. So back to the initial point, I have to say this movie's kinda decent. It's not gonna blow your tits off or anything, but a movie from the creative mind that brought us such seminal classics as the visual vomit of Alice in Wonderland and the movie that tried to make monkey people sexy in Planet of the Apes, you could do a lot worse. It's a definitive step in the right direction for Tim Burton. It doesn't seem to really have any of his usual visual flair or craftsmanship, but I'd take that over Helena Bonham Carter wandering around with a geek massive head. So the story of Miss Peregrines follows the exploits of American teenager Jason. Or is it Todd? Maybe John? I'm not really all that sure because our protagonist is completely forgettable and might as well be called Blandy McBlandface. Anyway, this kid's the standard dweeby loner trope that struggles to make friends and has some token inattentive parents. Luckily for him though, his granddad seems to like him. Can't say I know why, the lad's boring as fuck, but whatever. Now, his granddad's a bit of a mad bastard and tells the kid all these crazy war stories about how he used to battle monsters and shite in an effort to defend this children's home filled with all these kids with extraordinary abilities. Basically think of the X-Men Academy filled with quirky British stereotypes. Eventually, in the opening act of the movie, the granddad kicks the bucket, but the mysterious circumstances surrounding his death send Pound Shop Harry Potter here on a quest to investigate his grandfather's stories, and it turns out the X-Men are real, and they need the boring boy's help. It's a fairly frantic plot with a metric fucking shit ton of elements thrown in. There's superpowers, time traveling, monster hunting, and a bunch of other stuff all wrapped up in this quirky British tweeness, but surprisingly the movie manages to hold it all together. For the most part, the ending eventually comes and fucks that all up, like by having alternate timelines and shit, but it doesn't drop the ball so hard that motherfuckers want to find it. This shit ain't cray, it's still okay, even with the messy conclusion. Up until then, there's a good amount of entertainment to be found. The characters are all pretty engaging and unique outside of the sudden personality dementor they have for a protagonist, and the story does a nice job of telling a bouncy, yet at times surprisingly dark adventure as the kids fight back against an evil Samuel L. Jackson, who has had it with these motherfucking children in this motherfucking orphanage. You should know that there are some significant issues I have with it. The quirky charm can be a bit much at times and feel a little forced. I was half expecting the titular Miss Peregrine at one point to have a monologue about how tea and crumpets were just smashing. And you can tell it's a Tim Burton film because all of the villains look like goths, and all of the heroes also kind of look like goths. But, you know, this kind of quote-unquote whimsical presentation just maybe isn't for me, and others might enjoy it a bit more. Since it's not inherently bad, it just isn't to my taste. The real significant issues, I'd say, fall within the ending and some of the in-universe world-building stuff, but to talk about those, that goes into some spoiler matter. So if you don't want that, I'll just say that I'd still give it a recommend in spite of these issues, but if you want a bit more of an explanation of what bothered me, then stick around for spoilers in 3, 2, 1. So, I have no idea what some of the rules of this universe are because they seem to make almost no fucking sense whenever we get to stuff surrounding the villains. I'm all for artistic license, I'm totally down with that. I understand that getting bit by a radioactive spider would probably just be a harrowing experience that ends up with you getting arachnophobia and cancer as opposed to the ability to scale walls, but I can at least get the logic there. Bit by a mutant spider, get mutant spider powers. Sure, I'll go with that. It's fantasy that doesn't really make sense, but I'm down for it. Peregrine's home's logic, however, for its in-universe explanation of why things happen the way they do seems to be a lethargic shrug and a message of, just go with it. It starts fine at first. We're told in this universe some children are born with superpowers. Okay, fine. Now the ones that turn into birds are leaders and protect the children with powers. Alright, no issues there. They do that by keeping them in a time loop because they can control time. Alright, you're losing me now. Why can these people also time travel? But whatever, I'll bite my tongue and give it a chance. And then Sam Jackson's band of villains come about and just introduce full-blown nonsensical insanity. I mean, listen to just the explanation for how his whole shtick works. Just listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Sammy J and his cronies decide they want to be immortal, right? So Big Sammy works out if he kidnaps the bird peculiars and, I don't know, sucks out their energy or some shit, that will either A, make them immortal, or B, turn them into weird long-legged Slender Man-style monsters. Side note, by the way, the designs were cool. The monsters made no sense, but well done on the design. Now, when option B ends up being the thing that happens, the villains obviously turn into these weird beasts, who are also invisible, by the way, for reasons. And they then work out that they can get back to their human form if they chomp through a buffet of kids' eyes. Fucking why? This raises so many questions. Why are the monsters invisible? Why does sucking a bird up through a portal thing make you a monster? How can the experiment even possibly fail this randomly? That's like if you had a bit of a sniffle and your doctor gave you some cold tablets, but instead of helping relieve your nose irritation, it just randomly gave you full-blown AIDS. Invisible Slender Man monsters shouldn't even be a possible outcome in this scenario. Also, when they get back to human form, the villains decide that the reason the experiment failed was because there wasn't enough bird people used. What? Am I supposed to believe that Sammy J was just sitting around looking at schematics and scratching his head thinking, I don't know why this didn't work, lads. Aye, there it is. That'll be it. I forgot to take the bird person to nightmare abomination ratio into account. Well, that's easy fixed. My bad. Let's just nick some more birds and have another crack, eh? If it goes wrong again, we'll just chew some more eyes. Speaking of the eye thing, why the fuck does that work? Who was it that said, I have a fever, and the only cure is more eyeballs? Why eyeballs? Why not fingers? Or toes? Maybe they tried toes first. Maybe they were going to chew eyeballs, but when they were discussing possible cures and someone suggested their mates eat some eyeballs, he turned around and went, I'm not fucking doing that, Barry, that's disgusting, mate. But then they took Barry on a drunken night out and the kebab shop closed early, and before you knew it, it was 4 a.m. and he was going, yeah, Steve, passes them eyeballs, lad, I'm clamming for some munchies. Also, another side note, but when did taking kids' eyes become a go-to creepy trope? I thought it was just a Studios thing with Coraline and Kubo, but now this did it too. I mean, it works. It's pretty unsettling. Just seems a bit odd that it would come up so much. Now, even if you get on board with all the mad eye magic stuff, you still get a really shitty ending. Not only is it contrived and messy with all the weird time loop shit, but you're telling me Blandy McBlandface gets both the girl and his granddad comes back to life? Motherfucker's like one of those spoiled kids in school who would get a Game Boy Color for Easter. You're supposed to get a chocolate egg, you twat. You can't get all you want in life. Fuck off. And does no one else find it weird that we end the film on the note that this kid's gonna probably grow up and bang his granddad's old love interest? No? That just seems strange to me.